And at the moment, none of the expected carnage in these tight corners. On Friday, there were 4 red flags because of cars hitting walls. The worst of those being that of Fabien Giroix, who virtually destroyed his first racing Lotus against one of the concrete walls. The car was totally rebuilt at the front end. They had a spare car, they just took the front off, did a transplant. And Giroix, who had suffered some whiplash, fortunate not to be worse hurt. Well, 3 laps completed here at Helsinki in the 3rd round of the FIA GT Championship. JJ Lehto leading for BMW from the 2 Mercedes of Alessandro Nannini and Alexander Wurz. Peter Kox in the 2nd of the BMW Motorsport cars, the sister car of this one, in 4th place at the moment, holding off Andrew Gilbert-Scott and Thomas Fischer in the 2 Gulf McLarens. Coming up already to lap back markers. It's the car of Tejo Lahti, 2nd of the factory Marcuses, 2 Finnish drivers on board these Marcus Racing LM600s. Shows just how painfully slow this man must be, because we're only on lap 4 and already Lehto passing his countryman Tejo Lahti. So it's the last of the 24 cars. This will be the next man to be lapped. Here he is, Charles Morgan, at the wheel of this wonderful +8 GTR, grandly named GTR. And the little Morgan, really the class of British racing still. If you want a road car, you still have to wait a couple of years. And if you want to go racing, well, they're talking about customer cars coming fairly quickly, and they're coming back to Le Mans next year, Charles Morgan was telling me. So JJ going further and further ahead, that gap now. Almost the length of the start-finish straight, as you could see. Nannini just passing the Morgan in the background. The wonderful wail of the V12 BMW. Atmospheric engine, no turbochargers to restrict the open exhausts. Absolutely beautiful sound, made even better, of course, by bouncing off these high buildings in the port of Helsinki. The organisers would have liked to have seen more cars. They had room for 34 on the grid, but there'd been a fairly massive pull-out of cars, the race being so close to the Le Mans 24 hours. People worried they would wreck their cars here in the concrete canyons, and Porsche adding to the concern by saying if anyone in a GT1 Porsche damaged the car, Porsche might not be able to get it repaired in time for the 24 hours. Porsche themselves not here. That was a big blow. Porsche AG having used the excuse of a crash by Yannick Dalmas at Spa 2 weeks ago. No, last weekend in fact, Saturday last week. Broke 2 fingers when he went off at the top of the hill. So Porsche missing this race, as is Porsche Kramer, as is Porsche Schubel and JB Racing, Jean-Pierre Jabouille. The 57 car that we're looking at the moment, that is Jean-Pierre Jarier in GT2. And just look at Jarier's style, throwing this car around the circuit here. And he is at the moment running ahead of the BMS Porsche of Pescatori we saw going off earlier. Well, not going off, but going very, very slowly around the hairpin. But JJ Lehto still leading through this series of right and left corners underneath the customs house. And confirmation after 6 laps, there it is in GT2. Jarier now leading Oiser by 5 seconds and pulling away. Marco Spinelli there in 3rd. Bruno Eichmann in 4th, the man who has been dominating GT2 in the past. So Brook strangely off form this weekend. After a short break, come back to Helsinki to come through and to take pole position in his home race, much to the delight of the thousands of fans lining the concrete canyons here on the 3.18 kilometer city centre race circuit. The circuit's used for the third time this year after two ITC races in 95 and 96, now being used for the FIA World GT Series. Well, he's just gone past Stefano Butterio at the wheel of the Carlo Agustin GT1 car. They had an engine change overnight, the yellow and blue car in the background, try and cure misfire, and it looks like haven't sorted out a lot of smoke there. Someone has had a bit of a moment by the looks of it. A lot of smoke at that corner, no yellow flags, so obviously whoever did it had a quick spin and continued. And here's the third man at the moment, Alexander Wurz. He's chasing in third place. Coming up behind Jari Nurminen in the Hugh Chamberlain. Chrysler Viper, goes past it. So the front three cars at the moment having lapped almost halfway up the field. There is Wurz, the man from Vienna, 23 years old, of course, came to instant fame by winning the Le Mans 24 Hours in 1996, driving for US Porsche. And a man that Bernd Schneider rates as perhaps the most promising junior in German motorsport at the moment. And of course, remember what happened to the last most promising junior back in 1989, a certain gentleman called Michael Schumacher, who was in the Mercedes junior squad. So watch this man, Alex Wurz, in the future. Still carving through back markers. Here's the other Agustin car, about to be swallowed up. This is Helmut Reis at the wheel. GT2 version. Helmut Reis there, you see him waving Wurz by. Very nice piece of driving by Helmut Reis there. The man whose overalls actually bear the legend, the nice Mr. Reis. The man with the helmet, which is the shape of the world. It's a map of the world of each circuit shown on the helmet. And there in the pits, we're watching the AMG team, wondering what's happening to their charges. First and second, Bernd Schneider there just walking past. He's well wrapped up, as you can see. It's not that warm today. It's something like 6 degrees at the moment here in Helsinki. It's cloudy and there is a threat of rain. There's a possibility of rain. Talking about cloud. Obviously not wanting to be outdone by last night's IndyCar race from Madison, which we brought you live on Eurosport, where rain threatened to stop the race. Great job by Jeremy Shaw and Ben Edwards, the coping of a lot of yellow flags and pit stops, but an incredible race for Paul Tracy. Hope you caught it live on Eurosport last year. And Dario Franchitti, didn't he drive well, leading the race until his gearbox broke, and Patrick Carpentier taking over the lead, and Paul Tracy pulling out a blinder right at the end to make it 3 out of 3 for his Penske Mercedes team. Well, they're at lap 10, and it's Lehto still leading from Alessandro Nannini. We haven't seen Nannini for a few minutes. Alexander Wurz in third, Peter Kox for BMW in fourth, and then Andrew Gilbert-Scott and Thomas Bischer in the two Gulf McLarens in 5th and 6th place. Lehto, I think an average 126 kilometers an hour, as you can see there. And what a blinding performance in qualifying by the Flying Finn. 1995 Le Mans winner for McLaren, gave McLaren their first ever victory at the 24 Hours. Winner in Hockenheim, and comes from Espoo, which is a little bit to the north of Helsinki. He started his racing career in karting in 1972. Well, most of you know his Grand Prix history, 62 Grand Prix. He drove for Onyx, for BMS, for Sauber, and for Benetton. Done 4 Le Mans 24 Hours. You'll also remember him, those of you in England, as being the 1988 British Formula 3 champion. Thomas Bichette just there, so Bichette about to be gobbled. Well, has Bichette had a problem, or are they just carving through? Is that how far through the field they've gone? Yes, indeed. His pace is so great that he's caught up with Thomas Bichette in the second of the Gulf McLarens. Thomas Bichette, as we heard earlier, the slower driver starting in case there would be early race problems. There haven't been early race problems, and Thomas Bichette in the Gulf McLaren put down a lap by the flying Finn, JJ Lehto. Alessandro Nannini now down in 4th place. He's been passed by the number 9 McLaren of Peter Kox. We didn't see it happening, but he's been pushed down, and Peter Kox going through into 3rd place as Alessandro Nannini. Passed by Alexander Wurz as well. So in the space of 1.5 laps, Nannini drops from 2nd down to 4th. Still pushing hard though. Nannini, man who raced in Formula 1 all those years ago from Siena in Italy. And a great comeback now. Won the Japanese Grand Prix, remember, in 1989 with Benetton. Had a helicopter crash in 1991 which almost severed his arm. Made his comeback in 92 in the Italian Touring Car Championship, and he took 4 wins. And then the DTM, the German Touring Car Championship, with Alfa Romeo. 94 and 95. Well, Fabien Giroix, an early pit caller. Giroix, all sorts of problems, as we said, throughout qualifying. There you can see the very patched up car after his big accident in qualifying. Giroix staying in the car. Rejoins in the first racing Lotus. This one, the V8 atmospheric engine. The 2 Italian Benetton-backed GBF cars with turbo engines. Still with JJ Lehto. Lehto in 1st place, Alexander Wurz 2nd, Peter Kox in 3rd place. I've seen nothing of Peter in the last few minutes. And in 4th place, Alessandro Nannini. And GBF Lotus, the number 23 car of Luca Badoer, now in 5th place. So he's having a great race. He's gone ahead of the Rupp Porsche, the number 16 Rupp Porsche of Ralf Kelleners. There's confirmation after 13 laps of the top 6 places. We're looking there at Alexander Wurz, the man now in 2nd place, flinging his Mercedes around the streets. But at the moment, 11.7 seconds behind the race leader. And he's now coming up on Thomas Bichette. So he too lapping Bichette. Oh, he had him, yes. Bichette had to go in, he shut the door. Wurz just completely locked up. Did he touch Bichette or not? But he went into the tyre barrier. He seems to have done a lot of damage there. Well, that was quite unnecessary. Wurz had just waited a second as he was lapping Bichette there. Perhaps. No, they're giving him the thumbs up. The marshal giving him the thumbs up. He's got to find reverse, providing the Mercedes has a reverse. And this is exactly the sort of situation we thought. Now here we are. Thomas Bichette has to turn in. He's got nowhere else to go. And Bichette perhaps a little bit circumspect. Oh, Bichette spins as well. Bichette going through a 360 there. And Alexander well planted in the tyre barrier. Well, here we are in Helsinki, round 3 of the FIA Grand Touring World Championship. We're looking at the man who was just in 2nd place, and it's Alexander Wurz, who is firmly planted in the tyre barrier. Thomas Bichette also spinning out of the race, or spinning out. There we are. Wurz trying to find a reverse gear, try and get himself out. He seems to be having a lot of problems there. Perhaps he can't start the engine, but the front of the car, you can see, fairly heavily damaged. Now, will this get out the safety car? This is what everyone's been waiting to see. Fine overhead view of the docks here, the port of Helsinki. It's Alexander Wurz down there in the centre. Everyone waiting to see exactly what's going to happen. The car is firmly planted in the tyres, unless he can find reverse, get himself out. Yes, out comes the safety car, as we suspected. First safety car after 14 laps of the Helsinki Thunder in the streets. A 3-hour race. Now, these interruptions with safety cars are not going to reduce the length of the race anyway. There, they've done a good job. They're picking up JJ Lehto, and JJ Lehto coming up behind. Sees all the yellow flags out, and he will tuck in behind the safety car. We take a short break. Circuit, and it is a fine circuit. The drivers love it. It's not as bumpy as some of the street circuits that Formula One and Indy cars race on. They've done a very good job. The Robert Lepinen, who is the organizer of the race, he's a touring car racer himself in Finland. He put a lot of time and effort into getting these bumps sorted out, resurfacing done. Trucks have to use this circuit obviously during the rest of the year, but bearing that in mind, very, very good surface, and some very interesting bumps and cambers where you see even the McLarens lifting a front wheel, something you've never seen anywhere else in GT racing. So Lehto leading at the moment from Peter Kox. There he is, that's Peter in the BMW McLaren, and there's Jaro Nurminen in the Viper. GBF Lotus now up into 3rd place. That's very, very impressive. That's the car of Luca Badoer, the car he's showing with Mimo Schiatarelli. It's the GBF's Franco Miners run 3.5 litre V8 twin turbo, 510 horsepower. They've just been allowed larger restrictors along with Porsche for turbocharged cars, so they're finding with that increase in power this weekend and the very short wheelbase of the Lotus that they are getting a real performance here at Helsinki. Well, after 17 laps, we have got green flags again. Racing starts again, but it's at the moment JJ Lehto, who's lost his advantage over Peter Kox. It was an advantage of 12 seconds. You can see for yourself now how that has been reduced. But what is the problem for Alessandro Nannini? He's dropped down to 5th place, having been 2nd earlier on. There he is, just coming through the picture now. There is Thomas Bischer. Thomas Bischer obviously recovered. The Gulf McLaren now going on after that spin. And Andrew Gilbert-Scott also for Gulf McLaren. He at the moment is in 7th place, just behind the BMS Scuderia Italia car of Christian Pescatori. It's one of the Porsche GT1s. The Porsches with their 3.1 litre flat 6 twin turbos, basically the 962 engine we saw in Group C racing, but very much more restricted, strangled Porsche would claim. Well, there's the gap at the moment, 3 seconds. The only problem for Kox at the moment is trying to get by all these GT2 cars. That is Jean-Pierre Jarier in the silver Rook Porsche there, the man who's leading GT2 at the moment, sharing with France's Francois Lafoin. So Kox has gone past the first of the Rook GT2s. That's the car of Bruno Eichmann, and then Jarier. So he's a sandwich at the moment between the 2 silver Rook GT2 Porsches. You can see just it's not that easy in these twists and turns to get by. He needs a long straight where he can really get that 600 horsepower down through the back wheels up against these 450 horsepower GT2 cars there. Now he does it, now he's got the chance, and away he'll blast. He'll go straight off into the distance, and Jarier will just see dust in his trail. So McLaren 1-2 at the moment. Charlie Lamb's BMW Motorsport Schnitzer team pulling it out of the bag again, leading 1-2 after we thought Mercedes was going to blitz everyone here at Helsinki, despite Lehto's incredible qualifying lap late yesterday afternoon in the dying moments of the final session. So Lehto from Kox. And the other Rook Porsche, the car of Ralf Kelleners, the GT1 version of those 2 silver Porsches, is at the moment in 3rd place, just in front of Luca Badoer's GBF Lotus, and in 6th place is the Gulf McLaren of Andrew Gilbert-Scott. Lehto pushing hard. The pressure seems to be off just at this moment because he has got a 5-second lead over his teammate, but it's a 15-second lead over Kelleners Porsche GT1, which is in third place. In fact, not quite so big. It's 9 seconds shown on the screen there, but in fact it has come up to 14 seconds now. That was at the end of last lap. There's the Conrad GT2 Porsche of Marco Spinelli. And a whole host of cars. There is Bruno Eichmann. We're looking at him now in that silver Porsche GT1. That is our third place man, just ahead of Cor Oizer's Marcos, and through goes Eichmann. On the inside there, the man who won no less than 7 of last year's BPR GT2 races in the GT2 category for this same team, for Rupp Porsche. What a great job Fabien Rupp and his crew did last year. So Bruno Eichmann on a flyer now. Now he has been told by his team on the radio, no doubt, that there is nothing between you at the moment and the two McLarens. Having said that, Luca Badoer has just gone past him. That is Badoer. We see the 4th place signal there, and Badoer and Kelleners now fighting over 3rd place. But Badoer really getting this Lotus to work, pulling away. So Ralf Kelleners at the wheel of this car, Bruno Eichmann leading the sister GT2 car, the squad he's sharing with Claudio Hurtgen and Nick Aron of Portugal. This is a battle taken up again now. Ralf Kelleners and Luca Badoer. They're changing every lap. There's McLaren 1, 2, Lotus 3, Porsche 4, Porsche 5, and Gulf McLaren in 6th place, just ahead of the Conrad Porsche of Maribaldi, Franz Conrad and Max Angelelli. Well, there's Bruno Eichmann making room for the Lotus, inadvertently blocking his own teammate, Ralf Kelleners. Nothing he could do about that. They're in the S's section. And that's just given Luca Badoer perhaps the little break he needed as Badoer starts to power away in the Lotus, the V8 twin-turbo Lotus. 3.5 litres, around 510 horsepower before the weekend. We're not sure what they're getting at the moment. Lotus a little bit circumspect, but perhaps 580, 590. There's confirmation at the moment, and all eyes on this battle for 3rd place now between GBF Lotus, the Benetton Lotus, and Rupp Porsche. BMS Porsche in 5th place. That's the car of Christian Pescatori, and Andrew Gilbert-Scott in 6th for Gulf McLaren. These cars carving through the back mark of GT2 still. Jean-Pierre Jarier will be the next to be swallowed up by this fight for 3rd place overall. And Jarier still leading GT2 for Rupp Porsche. Cor Oizer's Marcos now dropping down to 3rd place. In fact, the 2 Rupp Porsches have come through. So Jarier keeping well over to make room as they go down to that. Oh, big lock up there for Luca Badoer. And Jarier goes nice and wide, lets both cars through, including his teammates' GT1 car, and he tucks in behind Ralf Kelleners. Try to get a little bit of a tow, what tow you can get on this fairly slow street circuit. Snapping at something in the 130 mark at the moment. A couple of 129s coming through, in fact, yes. Badoer has just done a 128, which is pretty impressive. That is equaling his best time in qualifying, so there's no holds barred at the moment. Once the old red mist comes down in racing, they go for it, and he, as I say, has just equaled his best qualifying time. He's done 128.311, and this in the race. So turbo power telling, and Ralf Kelleners really probably enjoying this fight, while up front the gap is further increasing. The 2 McLarens going further and further ahead. 22 laps completed. Peter Kox in 2nd place there, tucked in behind Fabien Giroix's car. Looking for Luca Badoer in third place. Here he comes, and here's this battle. Luca Badoer from Ralf Kelleners. This has been taken up with a vengeance. They've changed places twice in the last 5 laps. Andrew Gilbert-Scott next up in 5th place. There he is. And he is just in front at the moment of the BMS Scuderia Italia car, Christian Pescatori. That red Porsche in your picture now, right on the tail. So good battles at the moment for 3rd and for 5th places going on. And the other GBF Lotus, the car of Andrea Boldrini and Mauro Martini, back in 7th place. They had a low-speed misfire all weekend, and they were just praying there wouldn't be any pace car situation. Well, there's been one at the moment, but it didn't really affect them. And once they get the engine up to speed, that misfire seems to disappear. So a mystery that, but Mauro Foggieri, used to be Ferrari's manager, is the man who's looking after the engines now for the GBF Lotus team, the Italian team, backed by Benetton and run by Franco Miners. And Foggieri, still a wizard of engines. He's been looking after these V8 twin turbos, while Lotus factory team, which is not here this weekend, has decided to go back to atmospheric. Such was the penalty imposed by the FIA's restrictors on turbo cars. There's a good shot of the returns on the circuit. At one point where the cars going one way meet cars coming the other way. Fortunately, plenty of barriers between them. And going past the customs house, past the shopping centre, big new shopping centre being built here in the port of Helsinki, past the power station. And still JJ Lehto leading 6.7 seconds his lead at the moment, but then these two factory McLaren BMWs have a 32-second lead over the GBF Lotus of Luca Badoer, who in turn has a lead of just 0.1 of a second over the Porsche of Ralf Kelleners. Well, we're now 40 minutes into the race, and we can expect on this circuit fairly low speeds, with a lot of acceleration and a lot of braking. We can expect the first stops to come at around the 55-minute mark. That's the window that Charlie Lamb of Schnitzer is aiming for. MG Mercedes of Alessandro Nannini, he's dropping places all the time. He's down into 9th now. As you can see from there, 1 lap down, so Mercedes have had the ignominy now of being lapped by the leading BMW Motorsport McLarens, and of course this GT racing this year very much a battle between BMW and Mercedes, a matter of honour in Germany. Porsche concentrating on Le Mans at the moment. They'd love to go out there and win Le Mans again in the GT1 category, if not an overall win, and they've got a big battle on their hands, of course, against Nissan. Oh, problem for Nannini. He slowed right down there. Is it a gearbox problem? He came out of the hairpin there, and suddenly the car slowed. Yeah, he's got a big problem. It would seem he might be